I'm Steve Wilkerson. I'm with Jim Saunders, Executive Editor of the News Service of Florida. Jim, the congressional redistricting process goes on, and we're in a part of it now where the Supreme Court of Florida has sent the case back again to Judge Terry Lewis of the County Circuit in Tallahassee, County Circuit Court, and he's going to have to hear the case again, redraw the districts again, and so where does the issue stand and what's going to happen?
Well, I can't imagine Judge Lewis wanted this to land in his inbox again, but the legislature last month went into special session ostensibly to agree on new congressional districts to carry out a Supreme Court ruling, which the Supreme Court found that the current districts are unconstitutional. So it gave pretty direct instructions of what it wanted or what it thought needed to be done. The legislature couldn't come to agreement. So it went to Judge Lewis, and Judge Lewis said, I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do, Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court came down on Friday afternoon before the holiday and said, Judge Lewis, we're sending it back to you. He is going to, he's been directed by the Supreme Court to take a look at the proposed maps that the House and the Senate put together during this special session. Though they did not pass anything, they did have detailed proposals. And so Judge Lewis has until October 17th to hold a hearing and evaluate the proposals and try to come up with something that will meet the constitutional standards as the Supreme Court sees them.
Well, the court, in making its original ruling, actually came back with some districts that seemed like they drew pretty much.
Yeah, they found that 8 current districts were unconstitutional. They violated the Fair Districts Amendments that the voters approved in 2010. And at least in some of those cases, they were very prescriptive about what they wanted the legislature to do to correct the problems. The most talked about has been Corrine Brown's district, Congresswoman Corrine Brown, whose district currently goes from Jacksonville to Orlando, and they say that the district needs to go from Jacksonville over even west of Tallahassee into Gadsden County. There's similar directions they gave down the Tampa Bay area to redraw the districts down there. So, but the legislature couldn't come to agreement on how to do it. So Judge Lewis will look at what the Supreme Court has said. He'll look at what the legislators put together in these proposals, and he will be responsible for essentially making a recommendation of what these districts should look like to the Supreme Court, which then will have to sign off. There's actions in federal courts going on right now as well, but Supreme Court's pretty much saying we need to get this ball moving because the elections, the primaries, are less than a year away at this point.
Well, the Florida Senate's saying, I believe, that there's still time for the Senate and the Florida House to get together again in special session and take one more shot at this before Judge Lewis has to redraw the boundaries. What does the House feel? What signals are they giving?
Well, the Supreme Court definitely left open that possibility. Very, very clearly, they said, if the legislature can come back into special session before this October 17th deadline and draw the maps and take them to Lewis and have him review them, then that's fine. But, the Senate started talking about continuing to negotiate and stuff, even at the end of the special session that fell apart. And the House pretty much said, you know what, we've done all we can do. We can't come to agreement. Let's just throw it back to the courts. And even after Friday afternoon, after the Supreme Court sent it all back to Lewis, the Senate president quickly put out a statement basically saying, let's try to get together again and do it ourselves. And the House Speaker put out a statement that was sort of like, well, didn't really say much. So, which indicates to me that they're still skeptical that they can come to agreement with the Senate on this, and that the courts will wind up drawing it.
Meanwhile, the clock is ticking.
Well, it is. I mean, qualifying for congressional races in May. So that's not very far out at this point. And as I mentioned earlier, Congresswoman Corrine Brown has a federal court challenge out there, and there's another case out there too that was filed by some plaintiffs, including State Representative Mike Hill. So there's a couple federal court actions out there too. So even you go through this process, we could be seeing delays coming up in the federal court system as well.
And right down the road, just a few weeks away, Florida Senate redistricting.
Well, and everybody,
the same
everybody's
folks.
kind of always thought that was going to be the bigger quagmire than the congressional redistricting, because there's a whole lot of people with a whole lot of self-interest that are going to be drawing Senate maps, more so than there were even with the congressional districts. So that special session is supposed to start in mid-October, and I think people are kind of bracing for what's going to happen in that.